Are you struggling with creating video content for your business, side hustle, or YouTube channel? Wave Video is here to help. It's the platform I recommend the most to small business marketers because it's a full suite of tools: video recorder, editor, easy to use templates, screen capturing, live streaming, GIFs, video to email, and believe it or not, even more. With Wave Video, you can easily create professional-looking videos for your website, social media, or ad campaigns in just minutes. Wave Video's intuitive drag-and-drop editor lets you add text, music, and animations to your videos, making them truly stand out from the crowd. So why wait? Sign up for Wave Video today and start creating videos that capture your audience's attention and drive results for your business. Tap the link in the episode description to get 10% off any paid plan. Wave Video. Create better video content in less time. On this episode of the Marketing Clarity Podcast, I am joined by Kyle Stout. He's the founder of Elevate and Scale, an email marketing agency that helps direct-to-consumer brands unlock hidden revenue and put their sales on autopilot. And what we're talking about is email marketing. Here's the big stuff. We talk about the top 3 mistakes entrepreneurs are making with email marketing. We're going to hit on how to create emails your customers actually want to receive. And finally, we are going to discuss a little bit about how to pick the email marketing platform for your business. All that and more in this episode. Kyle, thank you so much for joining me in the Marketing Clarity Podcast. I've been wanting to have someone on for a really long time to talk email. And I feel like now I've scratched that itch with you.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've seen with so many of my clients, so many people I talk to, the small business marketer, is they spend so much time thinking about, consumed with, planning, putting resources towards social media. And they neglect email, right? Like, we know what the email then becomes. It's the promo sale, like once a month email, if even. I would say at least you don't see as much of the, like, oh, this is an afterthought. Let me just send out an email to celebrate a holiday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Okay, great. I don't know what this does for me in my inbox. That's fantastic. So I am really excited to have you drop some knowledge for the listeners about email marketing. And one thing that we were talking about was, you know, in your work, you've kind of seen this top 3 most common mistakes that entrepreneurs, small business marketers are making with their email marketing. And you've kind of seen that it's costing them money, I'm assuming resources too. Do you want to talk about maybe, you know, like let's share what those top 3 are and kind of talk a little bit about them?
Yeah, definitely. So like you mentioned just a second ago, with this kind of being an afterthought, you know, one of the low-hanging fruit things that people can use email for is you send out some sort of promotion with a discount, and you can always count on a bump in sales whenever you do that. And the problem is that if that's the only part of your email strategy, so the problem number 1 would be just, you know, relying too much on discounts, is that you train your list to only buy whenever you have a discount. And they just see your emails as just, you know, like, once they get trained to that point, they're just not going to engage in your emails when there's not a discount available. And the problem there is that, like, while I'm not against using discounts, especially for, you know, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and even like holiday sales or something like that, or as an incentive to get people on your list, it's maybe like, you know, a small discount on the first purchase, things like that. But you really don't have to have discounts to get people to buy, and you end up losing a lot of revenue by only giving or only getting discounted purchases from your email when you rely on that. So that's the first thing is if someone's thinking like, well, we have to offer a discount for the email to be interesting, that's just not true. And we can get into that later. But so yeah, that's the first thing, is relying too much on discounts. The second thing is not figuring out your email frequency, meaning the frequency that's right for your business. So I see a couple of scenarios. So what I see on one end would be smaller businesses that are maybe just relying on the email too heavily, and they just haven't quite gotten enough traction with social media, really enough traction with getting traffic to their site. And so they're just blasting their list over and over, just, emailing every single day. And again, you're just going to burn out your list. People are going to, even if they don't unsubscribe, they just start ignoring your emails by default. And then now you're just harming your ability to market to them in the future and to get sales from them in the future. You're just decreasing the value of this asset, which is your email list, by doing that. Now, on the other end, there are businesses that either are bigger businesses in total revenue, or just bigger businesses in terms of how big their email list is, how diverse that list is, meaning that there's a lot of different groups of customers that they could segment, and they're actually not emailing frequently enough. I see that a lot, which is
that's one. I think it's a rarity with a lot of the small business, but I will say I do see that a lot too, where it's like, oh, we send the one a month. And to your kind of earlier point, even that one a month is the only discount, is only the discount email. There are other opportunities to engage. And I think a lot of times, particularly again, you small business marketers out there, you're like, oh, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to, right? Like, I don't want to send too many. And you can send too many. We do know that. However, I would say most probably fall into the category of not sending enough.
Yeah, I mean, so what you said is the typical thing. The monthly email where they send out the same discount. It's the same exact offer every time. It's like a flat, 15% off, 20% off, whatever it is, right? It's so predictable. And you really would like to get to once a week, I think, is a good cadence for small businesses. You can do more if you have a bigger list and you can start segmenting people out. That's something we can talk about. But I would say, to touch on what you mentioned earlier on, is this whole idea of when you sit down to create the email, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm just going to annoy them, I'm just, you have to just totally get that out of your head. Because if you're thinking that, the email you create is going to be a reflection of that thought, right? It's like you're writing in such a timid way that's like, oh, I don't want to offend you.
Or sorry to, it's like the most timid sales attempt. Which, let me say, and I think we're gonna touch on this through later on in this conversation, but it's not that everything has to even be a sale either,
Exactly.
But I think to that point, no matter what that communication is, you're not really kind of stepping into your voice. You're not coming, I would even say, from a kind of authentic place to probably how confident you are about your product, service, or business.
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Your product or service, I have to assume you believe in it, right? And that there's value there. You're actually helping people, whether it's solving a problem or just even just offering a product that people enjoy and they like. I mean, you have to have confidence in that. Like, there's a reason why you sell it, and hopefully it's something of high quality. So there's no reason to be ashamed about promoting this thing, because you're ultimately trying to make people's lives better. And if you have that attitude, it's going to show up in the copy you write. And then also, like you said, if you're doing all this yourself, if you only sit down and write an email once a month, you're just never going to develop that skill of copywriting for emails. You really do have to develop that brand voice. And also, you just want to get into a cadence of having a conversation with your list where they hear from you frequently enough to remember the previous email a little bit, to where you're familiar. You want to be familiar and feel like that there's a relationship there with them, because people forget very quickly. There's just so much competition on our social timelines. There's so much competition in the inbox. And if you're only showing up once a month a lot of times people are going to forget why they're signed up or that they even signed up in the first place. And they're going to unsubscribe or just not engage with the emails.
That's the one thing I always say, like Black Friday. I actually did a podcast about this on this last Black Friday, Cyber Monday, how it's actually my favorite time of year. Not because of the discounts, whatever. They're almost like, it's not even that special of a thing anymore, it feels like. Mm-hmm. It's my favorite time of year because it's when the forgetful / lazy marketer like pops up in your inbox like one time a year, and I can pick them off, right? Like I get like in my inbox, I'm like, oh, I haven't heard from you ever. Like, oh, unsubscribe. So I can really get my healthy unsubscribing done, during that time period when it's like I either don't actively remember signing up for this, I was somehow added to this list, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, well, now I know I'm on this list because you sent me an email so I can unsubscribe. So I think that's the other thing too, is if I only hear from you once a year, it's probably not a meaningful relationship.
No, and it's funny because I had a feeling that's where you were going with it when you said that, because I think that every year it's like, man, you get all these emails from lists that you just totally forgot you were on. And it's funny because some of them it's like, oh, I actually remember this, but this was more than a year ago when, since I heard from them last, like they didn't even show up last Black Friday, but they decided to this year. And it sucks for those business owners because they're often disappointed that they want to jump in on all this fun that all the other businesses are having with Black Friday, Cyber Monday. But you got to consider they've been maintaining this relationship all year long. Black Friday, Cyber Monday is like a big celebration for your biggest shoppers because a lot of them are going to stock up or they're going to buy the biggest thing or whatever. And so it's fun because it's fun for the customer. They save some money. It's fun for the business owner. They get this huge boost in revenue. But then for those businesses, like you said, that they didn't show up for the longest time, and it's a pretty mediocre Black Friday usually. And so now you've just kind of like, you've offered this huge discount and maybe you get a few sales, but overall it was, you probably end up getting a lot of unsubscribes and not a lot of revenue to really make up for it.
Yeah, totally. So we hit all three. Let's do a quick recap.
So the third one, and this won't be as relevant for a business that has a really small list, but as your list grows, you don't want to be sending every email to everyone on your list. So something to keep in mind, and I don't want to overwhelm people, so this is not something you need to worry about up front. But as you do grow your list, you do want to get to a point where you're able to send more emails, but you don't want to send every email to everyone on your list because not every email you send at that point when you're sending a lot of emails is going to be relevant to everyone. So that's where you start to segment different groups of your list. You can either be by engagement, by past purchases, by product interest, by demographics, location in the country. There's all kinds of things depending on what tools you're using. And that way now it's like, as you're sitting down to create the content, that's just one more element that helps you write an email that's more personalized to that group of people, because you at least have, beyond just knowing your customers, you now have this other thing that's a factor that this person is specifically relevant to them, or like especially if it's product interest, that's super easy because now you're just only talking about stuff that they've shown interest in some way. So that is something to keep in mind. And even with a smaller list, the way to start with segmentation is to only send to people who have engaged within the last few months. And you can set up some automations to try to re-engage people who stop engaging. But the reason why you want to do this is because you end up sending to everyone on your list, and all of these people who are unengaged, who don't open, don't click, what they're doing is Gmail and the other inboxes are seeing all of this negative engagement, and it's actually harming your email deliverability score with them. And they're a lot more sensitive about this now than they were even just a couple of years ago. So for one, you're potentially doing some damage to your email deliverability, so just not ending up in the inbox as much as you would. And the other thing is you're not getting true data because you're not seeing true opens and click rates, because a lot of those people who are receiving those emails, they just weren't going to open or click no matter what you said. And a lot of times it could be that they just don't even use that email anymore. There's just so many reasons why someone could be totally unengaged, but it's not even anything against you. It's just, they're just not even on the radar anymore.
You said something there that I think is really important. Maybe we dig into a little bit. And that is about kind of this, there's an algorithm at play that a lot of people don't know about when it comes to email, right? We all, I think, at this point know about algorithms and social media and how when you put a post out, you're not hitting 100% of your audience. That's a fraction of a fraction. Last I saw, at least on Facebook, it's like 3% of your audience. Email, unless something bounces or something like that, you do have this concept of like, oh, it's delivered to everyone. But you just hit on something I think that's very important that you touch on and maybe dig in a little more. There is an algorithm at play when it comes to the email clients and the servers of processing engagements, opens, things like that. And you may not realize this, but like this algorithm play, because if you use Gmail and you have like the tabs, right, where, oh, this is promotions and this is a newsletter and this is a whatever, it pulls a lot of that, if not all that, from kind of data that it's pulling from the actual email, but also almost like historical data related to sends and opens and clicks, right? So is there anything else, or like, talk a little bit more about how that factors into email, and what people should know about that?
Okay, yeah, this is something, it's relatively new because we've had this challenge with social media for years now, right? But email was always that channel where you could reach everyone every time. And that's one of the things that's always been great about it. And as the tech companies, consumers are demanding more privacy restrictions. Tech companies are kind of like, all putting up their different privacy restrictions. And there's this kind of battle between Facebook and Apple and, all this stuff of controlling our data. But in the middle of it all, marketers are the ones who are always having to navigate through these changing rules. And that's one of the big things that's changed is that, like you said, it's not even getting into the promotions tab isn't really as terrible as people think.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just can't avoid it because one of the things that this is even newer as far as all of this is that they're really paying attention to your domain reputation. So they're going beyond the content in the email at this point. So yeah, so like if you have links in your email, which we all do as marketers usually, and you're using promotional language and talking about products and services and things for sale, they've been able to analyze that for a long, long time. And certain things, there's just certain phrases that will get you sent to spam, right? Now, they just know by the domain, they've just collected so much data from different sources that they know that it doesn't really matter what you say, that you've established a certain domain reputation with them to where even if you say all the right things and craft this perfect email that has none of the spam language, you still might not end up in the inbox. You still might be categorized as promotions or social, which isn't always terrible, but you really don't want to get in spam. And it's very easy to get in spam these days, even with especially because of the domain reputation. So if they're seeing that people aren't opening and aren't clicking your emails, that lowers your domain reputation score with them. And you'll have emails where people who are subscribed to your list, who have got the last 5 emails you sent them, will just have random emails go to spam. And they might even get future emails from you. It's just that they're just going to be more sensitive about sending certain emails to spam. And so that's why I always tell people, you really want to start thinking about this from the beginning, because once it becomes a problem, it's a big project to
it's hard to dig yourself out, right?
Yeah.
Your reputation precedes your send, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. They've gotten very smart. And as we, could expect at this point, because we're dealing with Google and Apple and all the, the most advanced tech companies, right? So of course this would end up happening with emails, just like everything else with social. So the big things are just, really, if you can focus on your most engaged people most of the time, Now, for a Black Friday, Cyber Monday, just let it loose. Send it to everyone. This is the time to swing for the fences. Now, your regular emails that are going out, especially if you're sending more frequently, so 2-3 times a week or more, now you really want to be dialing in on key segments to where it's just smaller groups of people you're sending to at a time. But sending to people who have engaged with your emails within the last 2 to 3 months. And when I say engaged, I mean that they've opened or clicked an email in the last, let's say, 30 to 90 days. And those are engagement segments you can set up. And there's a bunch of free resources online. If you just Google like how to create an engagement segment for your tool, whether it's Klaviyo or ActiveCampaign, whatever you're using, you can find plenty of resources on this. It sounds complicated. It's really not. You're just like 1 5-minute YouTube video away from doing this. And so you just get into a pattern of when you send out your regular emails, just send to those engaged groups. And as people stop engaging, they just fall out of the group that you get sent to. So now they're not getting hit with the emails as much. So you're maintaining good engagement feedback, so good opens and clicks and all that. But the other thing is, like I said earlier, you can still set up some automations to reach out to people after they've stopped engaging. I like to give them a little break though. So if I regularly send to a 60-day engaged group, then I'll set up some sort of automation to try to re-engage people beyond the 90-day point. So I've given them a month off, right? So it's just like, there's just a bunch of reasons why someone might take a break or not want your emails for a little bit. And then they get that reminder, and you'd be surprised how they actually, kind of want to get back into the flow. Like, and especially with services, a lot of times people are they're in the market today.
Services, I think, so much more than products, right? Because particularly I know a lot of my clients and a lot of my listeners, they're professional services, and services are, I think, rarely a shoot from the hip. Like, oh, I'm going to sign up. Takes a lot. It takes relationship building. So I could totally see from a services perspective that re-engagement being of value.
Exactly. Because it's a longer sales cycle. And then people will go through, for example, let's just say someone's looking to hire a graphic designer or a design firm, something like that. And so at first they kind of they're shopping around. They might sign up to 2 or 3 companies. And then maybe they move forward with one, they stop engaging with these other 2, but it might not work out with that one. And then you get re-engaged with this other one that was on your radar originally. And now you, as the company, you have a foot in the door to now win them over again, because just because you didn't get them the first time doesn't mean you won't get them, because that's very common in the service industry. So this is one where, I, especially with services, I actually tend to be more aggressive upfront whenever you get leads in, because a lot of times they are actively searching and they're in buying mode, and then back off and just, have like a regular cadence to maintain a relationship, and then have some, because you do want to nurture that long-term, just for all the reasons we just talked about. And then there are opportunities to re-engage them later and win their business later, which is just think about how many times, in service businesses, you had a call with someone, and it's not until a year later you end up working with them, right?
I mean, to the point where I think a lot of the people I work with just think I'm brushing them off and a liar, which is not the case at all. It's oftentimes like, oh, I am also someone who really likes to lay early foundation. Like if I'm like, I know I'm not going to need this maybe for 6 months. And I tell, like if I'm on a sales call or whatever with that, I tell them that. But I can tell you, like joining an email list on that, a lot of cases for me personally, where 3 months, 6 months later, and I would say this, they also get positive brand affinity, which is what I want to get into here next with you. But like by sending me valuable stuff that I can use in the meantime. So what advice do you give to business owners, marketers, of how they can create brand emails that their customers kind of like actually want to receive?
Okay, so this really starts with some of the basic marketing research type of stuff that a lot of times if you started a business and you know your market really well, you might kind of skip these steps because at first you're just like, you're hustling, you're building. And this is something where I recommend people well, if you haven't taken the time to do this in a while, take a minute to dedicate a little time to working on the business instead of in the business, and do some of that initial buyer persona type of work. Or there's different phrases, developing a customer avatar, whatever you want to call it. But really just kind of looking at those things like, the pain points, the aspirations, the challenges, their goals, all of those things as it relates to your products. And now those things can be topics or marketing angles for your emails. So if you stick with those as kind of like the main topics, you always have the email itself, the content is going to be somewhat interesting to them, at least relevant to them. And then there's always going to be some sort of segue into whatever you're selling. So for example, in fact, I was just working with a woman the other day. She's just getting started with the jewelry business, and we were going over pain points and stuff. And one of them was people struggling to develop their own personal style or find jewelry that they feel reflects their personal style. Like they're just not even sure how to even figure it out. So if you send out emails that give them tips on developing their personal style or how to style their jewelry in different ways that maybe reflects their personality, now that's an interesting piece of content, right? And it's a natural segue into a few pieces of jewelry at the bottom of the email that would be relevant to that content. So, but if I'm not in the market to buy today, but I'm a jewelry buyer, that's an interesting email where even if I wasn't wanting to buy today, I still might have learned something from that, or I thought it was interesting. So when the time comes that I am in the market, I'm more likely to go with this company that's always talking about things like that versus the company that just puts up photos and buy now buttons.
15% off.
Yeah.
And now is a good time for me to share with you, if you have not done that customer avatar work, that kind of stuff for your business, this is a perfect time for me to tell you about a program that I can't say I just launched because I've literally been doing it for years, but I just launched it at a price point that is affordable to everyone out there. If you're a small business marketer, medium business marketer, a junior marketer, whoever it is, it's my Marketing Clarity Guide. It's available inside my Marketing Clarity community. The community is free. The guide is something that I have worked through and created from scratch and done with dozens of entrepreneurs and small business marketers. And it gives you company clarity, content clarity, and customer clarity, which is the most important component of what Kyle was just talking about. And so there are links in this episode description to check that out. And I recommend that, again, it's $9. It's all on demand. You get all the worksheets, which I have custom created. You can download them all. They're all yours to keep. The videos are there for you to keep. It's this type of exercise that is really helpful to do before you go to a Kyle. That's not to say that Kyle won't help you with that. He can. But what I am saying here is this is a really robust program that you can do. And then when you do go to someone like Kyle to help with your email, right? You come ready to go, right, Kyle? Like having that kind of stuff and being like, oh yeah, you want to know about my customer? Kind of done this exercise. Let me go through this with you. And then it really speeds up the time to implementation, the time to results, decreases even to some extent, probably testing periods and time where you're kind of like, oh, we got to figure this out, feel this out. So again, it's the Marketing Clarity Guide. It's linked in this episode description. And once you do that, now's when I'm going to pitch it over to Kyle. Kyle, share with where people can find you, whether it's just for the great information you share or to work with you.
So you can find me anywhere online at Elevate and Scale. So if you're interested in hiring my agency for your email marketing, go to elevateandscale.com. Otherwise, for my best free resources, I would recommend YouTube. That's where I'm putting out most content right now.
Yeah, you have some great stuff. Subscribed to you earlier this week. My awesome. Personal and my pro. So yeah, I threw two extra subs your way, enjoy them. I'll be throwing a lot of views. I was checking out a lot of the stuff. We're not done with this episode yet. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back, and we're going to talk about tools. So stay tuned. Hey y'all, so I'm going to pull the curtain back just a little bit here. So you heard me mention in that previous segment my marketing clarity guide, which you can get inside my marketing clarity community. Links to all that stuff in the episode's description. And during this break, Kyle actually shared just some really compelling insights as to why doing something like that is so incredibly valuable before you work with an agency like his. And I just had to share it with you because I think it's important that you hear it.
Yeah, I was going to give you a. I was even going to riff on your offer there because $9 is great, and that's, man, people neglect that thing, and it's literally the first thing you have to do for anything related to marketing, the customer avatar work. I mean, it's like, and so we do. I always ask people during the sales call if they have that kind of stuff developed, and we, as part of our onboarding process, we develop it. But man, it is whenever they've already done all that, it's so much better because then our strategies we develop end up being so much better. And not only that, like you said, they've already tested it. They've tested these different topics and angles. So we're starting with what we know works instead of having to go through a month or two of, we kind of know what works, but still there's like every brand's different. So you have to go through that testing phase. And whenever we can pick up from that, it's so much faster. We hit the ground running and just get way better results.
We're back with Kyle Stout talking all things email marketing. And I wanted to ask you if you had any tools that related to email marketing that you recommend, or even I would say preferential systems. And if you do prefer them, why?
Okay. So I'll start with the systems. My favorite one is Klaviyo for e-commerce businesses. Those are the businesses that we work with most of the time. The reason why I like it is because it integrates so well with Shopify. It allows you to do all the automations you would want to do. Super easy to do segmentation, super easy to do, really great campaigns, either at however much you're trying to scale up your email channel. Another tool that I really like is ActiveCampaign, or another platform, I should say. And ActiveCampaign is really great for really any type of business. So it's great for service businesses, any content, anyone who does content marketing and they're selling info products, anything like that is great. But what I will say as just a recommendation, actually there's two things. There's one, choose a tool that caters to your type of business. So just because you hear someone on a podcast talking about a tool they love, what I find is if something is really catered to your type of business and the technology you're using, so whatever website platform you're using, then it's just going to be easier for you to hit the ground running and get the most out of it because it's just less customization and, third-party integrations and stuff like that you have to do.
Yeah, it's less complicated too. It's kind of like turnkey.
Exactly. And then the other piece of advice I give people is, let's just say you found a couple of tools like that and they have equal capabilities. Go with the one that's just more user-friendly to you if you're the one who's going to be doing it. Because ultimately, a lot of these platforms have a high learning curve, and I should say relative. Like depends how familiar you are with all this stuff, right? So, if you're not going to take the time to learn it, you're not going to do it. You're not going to get the value of it. You're not going to be growing your email channel. So get the one where you can actually get started right away. You like using it, so take them for a test run, and the one that you can actually put to use the quickest and it has the right capabilities for you. Just go with that one because, as long as it has the capability, it's really just preference as far as which one is the best.
My answer, a lot of my clients or people ask me like, what's the best insert whatever here? What's the best email system? My answer is always the same. The best email system is the one you're going to use.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like you may not need the best. You need the one that you will use because the best, it's like, well, what's the best car? I'm not going to say it is the best car, but I was like, let's say Lamborghini. Well, I only go from my house to work to the grocery store. Seems a bit excessive. that I would have a Lambo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I do, clearly, but I mean, it's excessive, and I own that. It's crazy. But, you know, I do not have a Lamborghini. This is an important, it's called sarcasm, folks. I'm just kidding. So I think I'm with you on that. It has to be the one that you use. Don't look for necessarily one that's like, ooh, what's the fancy? It's like, that's why I think MailChimp can shine for people. It has its shortcomings, but it's also, keep in mind, and I hope you agree with me on this, it's okay if you grow out of a system, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And so that's the thing. When you get into these really high-end, complicated systems, they are harder to transition out of because you've built so much with them. So if you start with a simpler tool, migrating out of those is super easy. You usually have like, maybe one or two, just a few automations set up that are super easy to replicate. It's just a matter of just, downloading all your contacts and uploading them in the new platform. So yeah, again, if it's affordable, it has the capabilities, it's easy to use, go with that for now. As you grow, you will naturally end up hearing about or finding out about one that's better for you later on. And it'll make sense for you at that point because you'll have a bigger budget at that point. You'll have more needs at that point. Yeah.
So last thing I want to end this awesome conversation with is, do you have any, copywriting is an important part of email, Crucial. So do you have any copywriting books or resources that you find yourself recommending to people?
Yeah, the one book I always recommend to people, if you don't want to dedicate hours and hours and hours to mastering the skill of copywriting and go down, and handwrite sales letters and do all of that stuff, the most user-friendly framework that I recommend is a book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And it's an easy read, and they won't teach you all of the underlying strategies. They will teach you a lot about the psychology that's happening in this and why it's so compelling to people.
They use what's called kind of the hero's journey model throughout that, if I remember correctly.
Yes, exactly. So it's just like it's really teaching you to position to not talk so much about yourself and your business and talk more about your customers and to really understand what they care about and to position them as the hero. And then your product or service is the thing that helps them on their hero's journey. So getting back to all this, customer avatar work, in fact, if you were to take your customer avatar, solution that you have, and then you kind of so now you've got all of your research done on your ideal customer.
They blend nicely together, 100%.
Yes.
I love that book. I've read it several times. I think I totally agree with you. It's a great starting point for aspiring copywriters, but I think also just for people who really want to get better at developing their voice and speaking to their customers. It's a great resource. There's another one that I really like. I know we talked a little bit about it. It's Copywriting Secrets by Jim Edwards. Really great. Another super easy read. And it's one, why I love it so much is it is just chock full of things that you could call like a swipe guide, like templates that you can use. And in fact, I take his landing page template, and I've done a video walking people through how to build a landing page using the Jim Edwards template, walking through it inside the Marketing Clarity community. Again, it's linked in the description for this episode. You can go in there, just search landing page. You'll find the video. But it's got tons of them. It's got email ones, landing page ones, social media posts, all kinds of things. And it's very accessible. It's not you and I were just talking a little bit, there's one famously called the boron letters or something like that. And it's oh man, that's really if you want to, really love the craft. But if you're out there and you're listen, I'm not looking to make a killing off of being a copywriter full time, I want to run my business and write good copy, then start with Building a Story Brand and Copywriting Secrets by Jim Edwards. So before we dip out, I, again, want to say thank you so much. And another chance to please share with the listeners where they can find you, how they can connect with you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you again for having me. And I'm at Elevate and Scale everywhere on social. I would definitely recommend subscribing to my YouTube channel, which is Elevate and Scale. That's where I'm putting out most of my content and my best content. And then, of course, you can just go to our website if you're interested in booking a call.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of. What's your cadence on videos?
Right now, it's 3 long form, 4 shorts a week. So a daily video. Actually, no, this week I didn't do that. But now I'm trying to even up the shorts. I'm trying to actually increase the amount of shorts that are going out. So
yeah, YouTube's juicing shorts. That's a subject for another podcast. But he's putting out some great stuff there. So go and subscribe, Elevate and Scale. And hell, while you're on YouTube, head on over to Tricycle Creative if you haven't already. Give my channel a subscribe to. But subscribe to Kyle's first. Elevate and Scale, then Tricycle Creative. Really enjoyed having him. We talked email marketing this episode. Who knows what we'll talk about next episode, but it will certainly be tied to digital marketing, content creation, and I hope to see you there. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe. Please do it wherever you get your podcasts. And until then, I encourage you to keep peddling.